Welcome to Time Monk Radio. You are listening to part 24 of our 24-part series, Marvelous Mints, The Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan. Welcome back to Time Monk Radio.
Hi, Gemini. Thanks so much for having me here. So, usually I ask you if you encountered the plant that we talked about last week, but I know that there's no chance at all that you encountered wild dogga.
I did not. I did look at a lot of pictures of it. It is a very pretty plant.
It is a really pretty plant. So perhaps more people will grow it, and perhaps more people will experiment with it and see what we can find out about how we can get the best benefit from this fascinating member of the mint family.
And if you're doing some, cultivation and landscaping, it'd be a beautiful plant for the height as well.
Really wonderful foundation planting and back of the bed planting.
Yes.
Like all of the mints, it likes a sunny location, but it'll tolerate a fair amount of shade. So our last plant is a plant that has fascinated people for a really long time. Salvia divinorum, diviner's sage, or divine Mexican mint, diviner's mint, divinorum, feuille de la berger, herb of the virgin, herba de la virgin. All right, leaves of the Virgin Shepherdess, magic mint, Mexican sage incense. Here's that long word again, pipilitzitzitil. Sally D, right? Like Mary Jane, this is Sally D, right? Sage of the seers, sage divinatore, ska Maria, Herba di Maria. And there are entire books written about diviner's sage. So it is one of the big psychoactive plants of Central and some parts of South America. And as I said, I was rather amused to read this quote from Maria Sabina, one of the most noted of the Mazatec shamans, who primarily worked with psilocybin mushrooms. When I'm in a time, she says, where there are no mushrooms and I want to heal someone who is sick, then I must fall back on the leaves of pastora. When you grind them up and eat them, they work just like the mushrooms, but of course, it has nowhere near as much power as the mushrooms. The ritual use between the two of them is remarkably similar. The rituals take place at night, in complete darkness and stillness. Either the healer is alone with the patient, or there are other patients, or possibly even healthy participants. The shaman chews and sucks on the leaves, but before they are held over burning copal incense, and prayers are said. After chewing the leaves, the participants lie down and remain as still and silent as possible. Salvia rituals usually last no more than 1 or 2 hours, as the effects of the leaf last a significantly shorter time than those of the mushrooms. But the visions can be strong enough for the healer to find the cause of the illness. Salvia divinorum is the rarest of all of the psychoactive plants in the world. But because it is cultivated by plant lovers, it is grown in many places now. I have not seen Salvia divinorum growing, which kind of surprises me, because I would think that somebody I would know would have grown one by now, but hasn't happened. And I've never grown it either. But the pictures that I've seen of it make it look like coleus. And remember that diviner sage, is the woman, and Coleus is the godson. So I think it not unlikely that they do indeed look quite a lot alike. Most people who smoke or chew or take a tincture of Salvia divinorum report very bizarre and unusual psychoactive effects. They are generally not euphoric. They can be perceived as a bending of space or feeling of swaying. So let's see what our experimenters who hosted at Arrowwood have to tell us about their experiences, and then we will also look at some of the science, because there's some pretty fascinating science that has been done on this plant as well. Experimenter 1. These experiences that I'm going to report are from using dried salvia leaves that were treated with a liquid extract to amplify the potency. If you are going to try this herb, please read everything you can about it, and remember you can't do it alone. If you're going to ingest Salvia divinorum, you need to have a sitter, you need to have a friend, somebody there with you. All right. I was a bit leery of trying Salvia, as I had heard it was potent. So I let a couple of friends who were more courageous, foolhardy than I, give it a go. I bought it, and I let them smoke it. We used small amounts so the entire bowl could be sucked up in one hit. The active ingredient in the salvia vaporizes almost immediately, so it has to be smoked hard and fast with the flame on it the whole time. We waited for possible effects to kick in, which is only a few minutes in the case of salvia, and then we take another hit. Both of them smoked several small bowls each and felt nothing more than a momentary, mild kind of stony buzz. All right, then. A couple of nights later, my friend and I decided to try it, and our experiences were really different. We were in my apartment with the lights down low and the window shades drawn and ambient music playing very softly in the background. And we took turns smoking so that we could be the sitter for each other. My friend went first. She took a strong hit and coughed violently, sending up bits of burning ash everywhere. The smoke is rather harsh. And then she started laughing as I scrambled, trying to prevent the bedspread from getting ash burned. I finally cleaned everything up and realized she was still laughing harder than ever. In fact, she had rolled back on the bed and was laughing maniacally. She laughed for about 10 minutes straight. Now, I just got to stop here. Like, I do a practice of laughing for 5 minutes, and I have to tell you, it's a hard practice.
I imagine so.
Think about it. Think about, like, being tickled. And there's that point at which you, like, don't want to laugh anymore. 10 minutes, she laughed hysterically for 10 minutes. That's a long laugh there. Then she sat up and said, OMG, I had school today. Oh, my gosh, how long have I been here? Oh, bedward. And I explained it was just 10 minutes.
Oh,
just 10 minutes since she had the hit. However, that explaining took a while as she was sure that she had been gone over 8 hours, and I was messing with her. Then she started laughing again and jumping around and said, let me have some more. But it was my turn. So I smoked some. Nothing happened. I was about to try a second hit when everything started to liquefy. The whole world became swimmy. I slowly leaned back into a lying position as the world became plastic and melted into a spiral around me. It wasn't a hallucination. I mean, I could feel it and see it, and my apartment wrapped itself around me. Or maybe I wrapped myself around it. Either way, I could feel my bedspread squeezing against every surface of my skin all at once. And in my brain, I thought Christmas and trains. I know. This is kind of vague, but it was just like those two concepts just like fuse themselves into everything and then dissolved. I wish I could describe it. I had prickles. It was like I was entirely hollow, but I could feel something like rattling around inside me. It was very unpleasant. It was like something spiny rattling violently around inside myself. It felt like being beaten from the inside out, but there wasn't any pain. Just this huge jostling. And from the moment when everything melted, I had my eyes open, but I couldn't see anything. I couldn't. Eventually, I was able to stand, and my vision returned, but there was still this sensation of things sliding around and through me slower and slower until everything eventually was just as it had been before. But it took me a while to understand where I was and who I was and what had happened. Well, all right, said my friend, now I get to try it again. And so she did for a second time with similar results. She said afterwards that her grandparents used to look at her when she was young, and that smoking the salvia sent her back there. They were tiling the pool, and she was with them. And they were playing with her, and you know how you mess with a kid and you just tease them and make them laugh? Well, that was me. They were just messing with me, and it was hilarious. And the whole world was messing with me, and it was hilarious, you know? I really liked it a lot. So then it was my time again. I'd recovered from my first time. This time I put only the weakest little pinch of the leaves in, and the effects were pleasant. I closed my eyes, and I felt a spherical awareness. The night sky was filled with stars, and I was a shimmery blue-yellow light source forming a horizon around the bottom of my visual field. We had some music playing and sent thrills through me. I could see and feel the light changing in response to the music, and I felt my arms slowly rise in accompaniment. I felt weightless. It was a delicious feeling, and I would like to find it again. Then, on a different occasion, a friend and I went up a hill and smoked. He went first. Is there a pattern here? There's a pattern here. He always lets the other person go first. After several hits, he attained a pleasant, spacey state of mind that lasted for maybe half an hour, but he said it was really enjoyable. At one point, he lay back into the hill and he said, "I'm seeping into the hill." He bonded with the hill, and then he sat up sharply and said, "That's a darn fine hill." He said he could feel a fractal-like recursive pattern of whenever he came in contact with the ground. Then I took my hit, and I was totally blown away. I felt like my brain had been bashed out of my skull with a snow shovel. I couldn't make sense of anything. It was difficult to restrain my panic. I could only see a small patch of ground in front of me. Images, concepts flew about my brain, and I felt like I was being shaken roughly. I couldn't understand gravity. I felt like I was going to fall into the sky. I found myself clutching the ground and slowly, desperately trying to crawl downhill in an attempt to survive. But something kept forcing me to the ground violently. I felt sticky in some strange way, and I had the sensation of being spread out across the ground so that the dirt and the pebbles were pressing into every part of me at once. I was gasping, where is, and nothing made any sense. When I finally, within about 5 minutes, started to come around, I felt abused, and I have to say, I don't think that I will smoke any more salvia for a long time. I did, however, purchase some salvia tincture extract, but so far it has had no effect on me. Then again, I did take the lowest possible dosage. Next time, however, okay, experimenter number 2. And again, this is not the whole post here. I have excerpted and condensed so that we can get as much as possible in. During those months, the salvia experiences were never far from my thoughts. Their realness forced me to question my entire belief structure, which has always been pretty shaky at best. I consider myself a veteran drug user, but Salvia shocked and shook me to the soul of my being like no other substance has ever done. Indeed, the Salvia experience was so out there, I am no longer sure where here is. My newfound preoccupation with trying to integrate the Salvia experiences into my worldview of what is possible took away all the worries that I had about everyday trivial concerns. Oh my gosh, as a human, I am no longer stuck plant-like in the same spot. I have arms and legs and an opposable thumb. Oh my goodness, what is there to gripe about? I tried to explain to my friends what happened, but how could I even begin? This rambling written report is to give you some idea. After a while, I decided to just shut up, as harping on it seemed to act as a barrier between normal interactions. My psychology degree, holding friends, half-heartedly listened and then belittled and branded the most profound experience of my life as a hallucination. They probably thought I was weirder than Prince Charles. This irritated me slightly because as friends, and particularly as educated psychologists, I would have expected more interest from them. Even if my experiences were hallucinations, what do these hallucinations tell us about the brain, about chemical reactions? And if the hallucinations seem true and realer than real, then how real is reality? I was just expecting more input and less ridicule from these professionals. Anyhow, to me, Salvia seemed to be a fascinating tool for exploring psychology, most importantly, states of consciousness and belief structures. However, my friends' belief structures wouldn't budge or consider anything beyond what they had sponged from a textbook, darn conformist scholars. All right, I can't blame them, though. Even I couldn't believe what happened to me. It was clear I needed to find other people who had experienced Salvia to see what they made of it too. And that's what brought me here. Reading through other people's Salvia reports, I was taken aback. They revealed that different people in different places were hallucinating the same thing. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm not the only human being in the world that was turned into a plant by this. So, needless to say, I did not read you the part of the post where he talks about his experience. You want to find out how this experimenter got turned into a plant, you're going to have to go to Erowid.
Okay.
Right, EROWID, and read the whole thing because he goes on forever and ever. And there are dozens of people there talking about using diviner sage. Of the plants that we have talked about this month, the psychoactive mint diviner sage is one of the most popular of the so-called legal drugs. Obviously, they are not drugs. They are simply plants. And they are completely legal, and people who are interested in experimenting, experiment with them. All right. Mazatec shamans have a long and continuous tradition of using Salvia divinorum to facilitate visionary states. And that's why it is considered to be an incarnation of the Virgin Mary. Its chief psychoactive constituent is a unique substance called salvinorin A. In addition, it has an opiate and a D2 receptor agonist. It is a very low toxicity and low addictive potential. Taken orally as a medicine, it has been used traditionally to urinate, to regulate urination and bowel movements, to ease diarrhea, joint pain, and to help at the end of life. Yes, you're right, it is. It's used to help deal with headaches, stomach aches. We know these things. At this point, I'm just telling you the different ones. When taken orally, there is no psychoactive effect because the chemicals, the constituents that cause the psychoactive effect in the Salvia divinorum are destroyed by stomach acid and digestive juices. So this is why we are primarily smoking the plant. It is not, salvinorin A is not an alkaloid, which is quite strange because most of the other psychoactive plants do contain alkaloids, which are very basic forms. As a matter of fact, it is considered the first documented diterpene hallucinogen. The salvinorin A is the most potent naturally occurring hallucinogen. It is active at doses as low as 200 micrograms. Salvinorin A has no action on the serotonin receptor sites, which is the principal target molecule for the actions of classic hallucinogens such as mescaline and LSD. The potency of salvia should not be confused with toxicity. Rodents chronically exposed to dosages many times greater than those to which humans are exposed show no signs of any kind of damage at all. Salvinorin A is not just a hallucinogenic compound. It also has a wide variety of effects in the body. It inhibits and stops excess intestinal movement, that is diarrhea. It affects the cannabinoid receptors in the gut, calming the gut down. The mechanism for the action of salvinorin A on the ileal tissue, on the tissues of the intestines, is pre-junctional. In other words, it is much more effective in the small intestine than in the large intestine. Recent studies find that Salvia divinorum may be useful as an analgesic or be used as a therapeutic tool for helping to treat those who are addicted to drugs. A pharmacologically important aspect of Salvia divinorum is that its contraction-reducing properties are active only on inflamed and not normal tissues. Can you imagine that? A substance in a plant that can figure out which is the inflamed tissue and act as an antispasmodic there, but leave the other tissues alone. There are certainly no drugs that are capable of doing that at all. Salvia divinorum is the source of salvinorin A, and Mazatec shamans are quite adept at getting this compound out. They usually crush the leaves first to extract juices using between 20 and 80 leaves, and then they mix the juice from the leaf with water to create a tea, which they then drink. Chewing and swallowing fresh leaves is the other Mazatec method. Oral consumption of the leaf makes the effects come on quite slowly, often taking 10 to 20 minutes, and the experience from the onset of effects can last between half an hour and an hour and a half. And that reminded me somewhat of marijuana, that most people feel an effect from smoking it very quickly, but that if they ingest it, it can be an hour or even longer before they start to feel the effect of it. And yes, the temperature required to release salvinorum from the plant material is quite high. If you are going to smoke it, direct application of an extremely intense flame, such as that from a torch lighter, is required. Some people find that untreated dry salvia leaf produces unnoticeable effects, and this is why concentrated extracts have become so widely available. These extracts reduce the overall amount of inhalations needed and facilitate more powerful experiences. When salvia is smoked, the main effects come on quickly, the intense peak usually reached within a minute or so. And I liked this list. The immediate effects of using Salvia divinorum: uncontrollable laughter, past memories, sensations of motions, visions of membranes, merging with or becoming objects, overlapping realities, synesthetic experiences, and glossolalia. A survey of users found that 38% describe the effects as unique in comparison to all other methods of altering consciousness, and 23% the effects were like yoga or meditation or trance. There are some very interesting books, as I have said, written about Salvia divinorum and including Salvia divinorum. One of my favorites is Dale Pendell's, Pendell, Dale Pendell's work, Pharmacology, Plants, Powers, Poisons, and Herbcraft. He says, Salvia divinorum is very intense. I call it a reality stutterer or reality strobing. I think that having been a test pilot and flying in that kind of unforgiving environment with only 2 feet between the wingtip of my plane and the other plane, it helped me become prepared for Salvia divinorum. You know, Gemini, when I read that, I'm like, a test, I see. You need to be a test pilot to fly in this plane. Right? Dale Pendell expresses concerns about the use of highly concentrated forms of salvia. In its natural form, he says, it is benevolent and quite strong enough. High-strength extracts, on the other hand, show a more precipitous and more terrifying face. And those who try it by smoking the concentrated extracts often never wish to repeat the experience. The truth of the matter is, salvia is not fun in the way that alcohol or cannabis can be. If you want to party, don't smoke salvia, because you're not going to have a good time. It could, however, be used in a vision quest, or what is the way that the people who live with it use it? They use it in rituals. They use it in healing rituals. It is diviner sage. It is the plant that's used when someone is sick and we want a story. We want to look into the insides of things, as Maria Sabina says. We want to open the book of life and read what is written in the book of life and see if we can help this person get better. In the right setting, salvia definitely opens the possibility of having visions. Best if taken in a quiet, nearly dark room. Well, from the bright sunniness of basil and pesto to the dark room of Salvia divinorum, the mint family has certainly given us a lot of beauty, a lot of joy, and a lot to think about. In addition to self-medicated use in the treatment of depression, research suggests that Salvia divinorum has great therapeutic potential. An assistant professor of medicinal and natural products at the University of Iowa has suggested that salvia can help with people who are addicted to cocaine. Thomas says if you give a rat free access to cocaine and free access to salvinorin A, they take the salvinorin A and they stop taking the cocaine. Professor Brian Roth, director of the National Institute on Mental Health Psychoactive Drug Screening Program, says, we think drugs derived from the active ingredient could be useful for a range of diseases, including Alzheimer's, depression, schizophrenia, chronic pain, possibly even AIDS and HIV. Well, What an exciting plant, huh?
Yes.
Another one, as I said, that's fairly easy to grow. All the mints are fairly easy to grow. So, good time for planting our gardens for next year. And perhaps we can have a few more of the magical, mysterious, and mind-altering mints in our garden this year. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and the Mint family. I look forward to being right back here with you on Time Monk Radio next month.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's been wonderful learning about all of these mints and appreciate all the resources that you've shared with us as well. This concludes part 24 of our 24-part series, Marvelous Mints, The Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.